This week, a country with an economy smaller than the state of Florida and a military most analysts would charitably call third-rate, brought the largest economy on Earth to the negotiating table by threatening a stretch of water about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Ceasefire that was supposed to hold broke down. Iran's Revolutionary Guard declared the Strait of Hormuz closed. And just like that, roughly a fifth of the world's oil and a fifth of the liquefied natural gas that heats homes from Tokyo to Turin was suddenly hostage to a single choke point. The most powerful navy in human history cannot simply make that problem disappear. Because this was never about who has the bigger military. It is about geography. It is about leverage. It's about the terrifying fact that the modern global economy runs through a handful of narrow, fragile places, and whoever controls one of them holds a knife to the throat of everyone else. I want to be honest with you about where my head went this week, because I did not end up thinking about the Persian Gulf. I ended up thinking about a bridge, specific bridge, a couple of hours from where I'm sitting right now, and a hockey player who has been dead for a decade. Welcome to Jay's Takes. Today, we are going to talk about choke points, the obvious ones, and the ones hiding in plain sight in your own backyard. And I'm going to make the case that this week, quietly, without a war, the world got just a little bit safer. Gordie Howe, for the win. Let me show you how fragile the plumbing of the modern world actually is. In March of 2021, one container ship, the Ever Given, turned sideways in the Suez Canal and got stuck. Just one ship. For 6 days, it choked a canal that carries roughly 12% of all global trade. And by one widely cited estimate from Lloyd's List, it held up something on the order of $9 billion of commerce every single day it sat there. It sat. Look at the Panama Canal. In 2023 and 2024, there was no war, no blockade, no villain at all, just a drought. Water levels in the lake that feeds the locks dropped, and the canal had to cut the number of ships it let through from about 36 a day down to 24. Nearly all of the intercontinental data that runs your bank, your messages, this very video does not travel by satellite. It travels through undersea cables you will never see, that a single ship's anchor can sever. Here is how one choke point researcher, Ike Fryman, put it on NPR earlier this year. In a hyper-globalized economy, if you can control economic choke points, then no amount of American military power can solve that problem. With that, no amount of military power. The whole logic of the last century, that strength means the biggest army, is being quietly rewritten by geography. Let me bring this home. Literally, for me. I am Canadian. I was born in Ontario. And as I record this, I am sitting a couple of hours from a choke point that almost none of you outside this country have ever heard of, even though it may be the single most important piece of trade infrastructure on the North American continent. It is called the Ambassador Bridge. It connects Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, Michigan. For most of the last century, this one bridge carried about 25% of all the merchandise trade by value between Canada and the United States. That is one of the largest bilateral trading relationships on Earth. Full quarter of what moves between these two economies by land has been rolling across a single span. Roughly $300 million in goods a day. More than 10,000 trucks. The parts that become your car cross this border, sometimes several times, before the vehicle is finished. And remember, in episode 1, we talked about how integrated the North American auto industry really is. This bridge is the artery that integration runs through. It opened in 1929. For 2 years, until the George Washington Bridge surpassed it, it had the longest suspended main span of any bridge in the world. It was a marvel. Here is the part that should stop you cold. This bridge, this artery carrying a quarter of two nations' trade, is not owned by Canada. It is not owned by the United States. It is privately owned by one family, Moran family, through a company called the Detroit International Bridge Company. Matty Maroon bought his way into control starting in 1979 and held it until he died in 2020. His son controls it now. Single family, a single, aging, privately held bridge, carrying a quarter of the trade between two of the richest countries on Earth. If Hormuz is a knife at the throat of the world's oil, this was a soft spot in the heart of the North American economy that most people never even noticed. If you think the risk was hypothetical, I have bad news, because we already ran the experiment. In February of 2022, during the protests, some called the Freedom Convoy, a few hundred truckers blockaded the Ambassador Bridge. A foreign navy, not a state actor, a few hundred truckers. And they shut it down for about 6 days. The effect was almost immediate, because the modern car is built on just-in-time delivery, where parts arrive hours before they are needed, not weeks. With the bridge closed, Ford cut production and idled an engine plant in Windsor. It took a court injunction and police from 4 different forces to clear it, with somewhere between 25 and 30 arrests. And when it was over, everyone in a position of responsibility learned the same lesson that the whole world is relearning in the Strait of Hormuz this very week. If everything runs through one point, then that one point is not a bridge. It is a vulnerability. And the fix for a single point of failure is not a stronger single point. It is a second one. It is redundancy. It is a contingency. Which brings us finally to the reason we are here. About 2 miles from that single, privately owned choke point, a second bridge is about to open. And it is not a marvel of 1929. It is a statement about 2026. It is called the Gordie Howe International Bridge. When it opens, it will be the longest cable-stayed bridge in North America, with a main span of 853 meters, held up by 2 towers that rise 220 meters into the sky, shaped, if you look closely, a little like hockey sticks. Hold that thought. The most important thing about this bridge is not the engineering. It is who owns it and who paid for it. Unlike the Ambassador Bridge, this one is public. It is overseen by a Canadian Crown Corporation, the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. Here is the remarkable part. Canada paid for essentially all of it, about 6.4 billion Canadian dollars, including the costs on the American side of the river. Michigan co-owns the bridge and contributed in direct construction cost close to nothing. Think about what that means for our theme. This is not just a second bridge. It is a governance fix. It takes a quarter of 2 nations' trade, and instead of leaving it hostage to a single private owner and a single aging span, it adds a public, redundant, modern alternative right next door. The Strait of Hormuz lesson, applied with concrete and steel before the crisis instead of after it. Do not mistake this for an easy victory. This bridge almost never happened, several times. The idea goes back to the early 2000s, and for 2 decades, the single greatest obstacle was the man who owned the bridge next door. 2012, he bankrolled a Michigan ballot measure, Proposal 6, reportedly spending more than $30 million of his own money to try to require a statewide vote before any new international crossing could ever be built. Michigan voters rejected it. Ground was finally broken in 2018. Then, when the bridge was finished and ready to open, it almost died one last time. This February, President Trump threatened to block the opening entirely, demanding that the United States own at least half of a bridge that Canada had paid for. Then, just days ago, on July 11th, it broke the other way. President Trump announced a deal on his Truth Social account. And I want to quote him exactly, because his words are the reason this bridge opens on schedule. He wrote, quote, "I was able to cut a much better deal for America, and by so doing, we'll be allowing the new and spectacular Gordie Howe International Bridge, spanning Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, to open on July 27th as scheduled." Then, quote, "Thank you And congratulations to the Canadian government. May we both have many years of success with this wonderful new development. Reporting suggests Canada made real concessions to get there, including a long-term regional development fund tied to the bridge's profits. But the bottom line is this. This month, it opens. That hockey player I mentioned at the top. Let me tell you why they put his name on this bridge, because it is the whole point. Gordie Howe was born in Floral, Saskatchewan in 1928, as Canadian as it gets. Then he moved to Detroit and became, for parts of 5 decades, the greatest and most beloved player the city had ever seen. They called him Mr. Hockey. He died in 2016, and he is claimed proudly by both countries at once. A Canadian who is also a Detroit legend. There is no more perfect symbol for a bridge between the two. There is a second layer, and this is the one I love. Gordie Howe was famous for playing with his elbows up. Tough, physical, unafraid. His own philosophy was simple, and this is a real quote. If you play a little rough, you get respect. And with respect, you get just a little bit more space on the ice. If you have been paying any attention to Canada over the past year, you know exactly where this is going. Because as President Trump launched a trade war, slapping tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and autos, and openly musing about making Canada the 51st state, this country found its rallying cry in Gordie Howe's elbows. Elbows up was everywhere, on t-shirts, in protests on Parliament Hill, and in a campaign ad where the comedian Mike Myers, one of Canada's most beloved exports, stood elbows up right beside the Prime Minister himself. It became the national posture. When Prime Minister Mark Carney sat across from President Trump in the Oval Office and was asked about annexation, he did not flinch. He said, and I quote, "There are some places that are never for sale." Canada, he said, is not for sale. Won't be for sale ever. To which the president replied, "Never say never." Here is where it all comes together. There is a thing in hockey called a Gordie Howe hat trick, a goal, an assist, and a fight, all in one game. The irony is that Gordie himself, in all his thousands of games, is only credited with a couple of them. The idea is perfect. You score, you help your teammates score, and you are willing to drop the gloves if someone takes a run at you. That is exactly what this bridge is. The goal is trade. Hundreds of millions of dollars a day flowing more safely. The assist is 2 nations building something together, even while their governments feud. And the fight, the elbows up, is a smaller country refusing to be pushed around, insisting it is not for sale, and quietly making itself less vulnerable, less hostage to any single choke point than it was the day before. Started this episode in the Strait of Hormuz, where a small power reminded the world how fragile our choke points are and how much damage one can do. I am ending it on a river between Windsor and Detroit, where a small power did the opposite, looked at its own choke point, and instead of exploiting it, it fixed it. It added a second door so that no single family, no single protest, no single bad actor could ever again hold a quarter of a continent's trade hostage. Will not make headlines the way a war does, but it makes the world a little more resilient and a little safer. Elbows up, hand extended across the river. Gordie Howe for the win.